There are sins we recognize immediately: lying, stealing, adultery. But then there's also sins that we tolerate, we excuse. Some of them we barely even notice. And one of the most common of these is complaining. We don't call it sin, we call it venting or being honest or just expressing how I feel. But the Bible calls it sin. Listen to Philippians 2:14. Do everything without grumbling or arguing. Everything, not some things, not most things, everything. That means complaining is not just a personality trait, it is a spiritual issue. It reveals a heart problem because it's not just about words, it's about what's happening inside of you. Luke 6:45 says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if complaining is constantly coming out of your mouth, it's because discontent is filling your heart. Complaining is not the problem, it's a symptom of the problem. And the Bible warns about it because it takes it very, very seriously. Remember when Israel was wandering around in the wilderness, God rescued them from slavery. He provided food, He gave them water, He guided them daily, and yet they complained. In 1 Corinthians, it says, do not grumble as some of them did and were killed. So their complaining wasn't just about circumstances, it was about a lack of trust in God. Complaining is often a declaration that we don't trust God with our lives. And it damages you. It doesn't just affect your words, it changes who you are. In Hebrews, it says, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. What that's saying, that complaining hardens your heart because it trains your mind to focus on what's wrong, to ignore what's right, and to always expect the negative. So the more you complain, the harder your heart becomes, and that will destroy relationships. Nobody enjoys being around someone who complains constantly. They brighten up a room every time they leave. It drains people, it creates tension, and worst of all, it spreads negativity. It is contagious. Proverbs 17:22 says, a cheerful heart is good medicine. So a critical one is a complaining spirit. You know what it does? It poisons the atmosphere. Think about that. When somebody's in the room who's complaining all the time, it poisons the atmosphere. You can feel it. It's palpable. A complaining spirit doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. It creates bitterness. Complaining doesn't just sit in one spot and then go away. It is leading somewhere, and it leads to bitterness. And bitterness is an acid that will destroy its own container. In fact, Ephesians 4:31 says, get rid of all bitterness. When you constantly focus on what's wrong, you begin to criticize everything. You appreciate nothing, and you always assume the worst. Look, here's the point. Complaining feeds bitterness, and bitterness blinds you to blessing. I know a guy, a friend of mine, he had everything, what most people would want. An incredible job, a stable job, a home, a family, but he complained constantly. As we got older, it got harder to be around. Nothing was ever good enough, Oh, my job's not fair. They're not fair to me at work, or the coworkers are incompetent. His wife didn't understand him, and his life wasn't what he deserved. And he complained about his wife not understanding him. The point is this: over time, the complaining changed him. He became more negative and critical, and yes, draining. So what happens eventually? Well, his coworkers avoid him. He lost opportunities at work because people like that, they typically don't want to put in charge of other people, and his marriage, well, it was bad. So, the saddest thing about all this is that his life wasn't destroyed by his circumstances, it was destroyed by his attitude towards them. Complaining didn't just describe his life, it ruined it. God doesn't just tell us what to avoid. You're not supposed to complain, and we know that. But He also tells us what to pursue: gratitude. It is hard to complain when you have a grateful heart. 1 Thessalonians 5:18, give thanks in all circumstances. Not for everything, but in everything. Give thanks in all circumstances. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And Proverbs talks about your speech and controlling it. The tongue has the power of life and death. I know complaining feels small because some people have made it such a part of themselves that it doesn't feel like a big deal. And other people go, oh, that's just how they communicate. But it's not small. It reveals your heart. It damages your life. It destroys your relationships, and it pulls you toward bitterness. So many people I have counseled because one constantly nags and complains about something all the time about the other person. They look at them with a critical heart instead of being grateful for all the wonderful things they have in a mate. A complaining heart will always find something wrong, but a grateful heart will always find something to praise God for. So today, ask yourself, what fills my words? Is it complaining or is it gratitude? You may not be able to control your circumstances, but with Christ, you can control your response.